She gave her first time to a billionaire CEO, but she never expected what would happen next. She lost her first love that night, but she'd soon belong to a man no one could resist. Tears streamed down Iris's cheeks as she ran through the long hotel corridor. But grief wasn't the only thing burning in her chest. There was something deeper. Rage. A hunger for revenge that seemed to pulse through her entire body. At 22, Iris had always been a girl who felt things deeply. Senior year of college, living in the dorms, she'd built most of her life on her own. Her connection with her family was distant, strained. She was used to standing on her own 2 feet. No one would be wondering where she was that night, or when she might come home. She'd been dating Thorne for a year. She hadn't rushed anything with him, especially not the physical side of their relationship. Iris wanted their first time to be special, something real. She'd promised herself she would only give her body when her heart was ready. And tonight had shattered all of that. The message had come from an unknown number. Just one short line that sent a cold spike of fear through her chest. Thorne is at the Royal Grand Hotel, room 1203. He's not alone. At first, she didn't want to believe it. Couldn't. She trusted Thorne, or had convinced herself she had to, but the tiny voice in the back of her mind, the sliver of doubt, had started to tighten around her throat. Before she knew it, her feet had carried her to the hotel. Now, standing in front of the room, her hands were trembling as she knocked softly on the door. It opened, and with one look, her entire world collapsed. Thorne stood there, shirtless. Behind him, sprawled across the bed, was a naked blonde woman, older than Iris, her hair tangled on the pillows. Thorne's smile froze on his face. Iris didn't say a word. Tears blurred her vision. Her heart felt ripped apart, her pride shattered. She turned, staggered to the elevator, and rode down to the lobby. She could have gone back to her dorm. But the thought of being alone in that tiny room, drowning in this emptiness, was unbearable. Instead, she stumbled into the hotel's sleek, upscale bar. She slipped into a corner seat. Something strong, she told the bartender. She didn't even know what to order. She barely ever drank. When the glass was placed in front of her, she gripped it and took a sip. The burn scorched her throat, but it didn't touch the ache inside her chest. Just as Blake Harrington was about to leave the bar, his eyes caught something, or rather someone, that made him pause. There she was, a young woman, her hair falling messily around her face, eyes red from crying, sitting alone with a half-empty glass. Yet even in that state, there was something striking about her, a kind of innocent beauty that pulled him in. She wore a simple white t-shirt, fitted jeans that hugged her long legs, and a short black leather jacket thrown casually over her shoulders, the kind of effortless style that made her stand out even more in the dim upscale bar. Blake Harrington was 32, head of a billion-dollar business empire. Cold, charismatic, dangerously magnetic. Women were drawn to him. He was used to that. But this girl had something else. Innocence. And a heart that had just been broken. Blake wasn't the type to chase after love. He never had been. His world was built on numbers, deals, and control, not emotion. Women, when they were in his life, were part of an arrangement. Pleasure, dominance, no strings attached. That night, as usual, he'd stopped by this hotel bar, one of his favorites near his luxury penthouse, for a quiet drink before heading home. But then he saw her. It was instinctual, like a predator sensing its prey from across the room. He stopped walking, watched her for a moment, then quietly turned to the bartender. "Send her another drink," Blake said, voice smooth as velvet. "On me." When the bartender set the glass down in front of her, Blake approached. "I hope you don't mind a little company," he said, his tone deep and steady, inviting without pressure. Iris looked up, her eyes still shining with the sting of fresh disappointment. Normally, she would have refused, but tonight was different. Was it revenge she wanted? Distraction? Maybe both. She gave the faintest nod. I guess tonight's already been a disaster. Go ahead. Sit. Blake smiled faintly as he lowered himself into the seat across from her. There it was, that vulnerability, that defiance flickering just beneath the surface, and beneath it all, something dangerous, something magnetic. You look like you've had a rough night, he said, idly tracing the rim of his glass. If you feel like talking, I'm a good listener. Iris slowly pushed a stray lock of chestnut hair behind her ear. Not really worth talking about, she murmured. And honestly, not sure I'm ready to. They talked in bits and pieces, about the music drifting through the bar, about her school, the town she'd grown up in. Blake didn't push. He didn't judge. He simply listened. And with each passing minute he found himself more drawn to her, not just to her beauty, but to that fragile innocence, tangled with a hint of darkness. As the night wore on, he leaned in slightly, his voice calm, low. I don't like the idea of you being alone tonight, he said. If you'd like, my place is just around the corner. Iris hesitated for a brief moment. Go back to her tiny dorm room and cry alone? Or quiet her racing heart for a few hours? She glanced at the man beside her. There was danger in him, she could sense it. But tonight, she didn't care. Let the night go where it may, she thought. Okay, she whispered. And so, together, they headed toward Blake's luxury penthouse. As they passed through the towering glass doors of the sleek high-rise, Iris felt her legs trembling. Blake walked beside her in silence, occasionally glancing her way, but applying no pressure. Inside the elevator, as they stood alone, the tension between them thickened. She could feel the heat radiating from him. Yet he made no move. The silence pressed harder on her chest with each passing floor. Her breathing quickened. She'd never been in a moment quite like this. Thorne's petty lies, the shallow flirting, the way he handled her, compared to this, it all seemed laughably childish. Blake was something else entirely, dangerously confident, darkly magnetic, commanding an energy that made the air between them hum. When the elevator doors slid open, Blake gently placed a hand at the small of her back. This way, he said, his deep voice smooth as velvet. As Iris stepped into the penthouse, her breath caught. Floor-to-ceiling windows laid the city bare beneath them. The space was vast, modern, cold, yet stunning in its precision. Much like the man who lived there. Behind her, Blake spoke. If you change your mind, you can. There's no pressure. I can take you back to your dorm. I won't let you wander alone this late. Iris turned to face him, their eyes locked, those piercing blue eyes of his, holding something. Dark, yet genuine. She could leave. No one was stopping her. But she didn't want to go. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe revenge, or maybe that wounded pride of hers refused to back down. I want to stay, she said softly. Blake's mouth curved into a slow smile. Good, he replied. I'll pour us something. As Blake headed toward the kitchen, Iris wandered through the living room. Everything felt intensely personal, yet somehow distant. The art on the walls, the clean lines of the minimalist furniture, the city lights reflecting off the glass. A few moments later, Blake returned carrying 2 glasses. Whiskey, not too strong. He handed her one. Iris accepted it with a quiet thank you, her fingers tracing the rim of the glass. Blake sat across from her, maintaining a deliberate space between them. But the air had grown heavier. He finally spoke. Seems like tonight, you'd rather not talk about it. Iris hesitated for a beat. How much should she say? Someone lied to me. Someone I trusted for a long time. A shadow of understanding crossed Blake's face, and you were waiting for the right moment, to give him your heart, and he picked the worst possible time and the worst way. Iris lowered her gaze. His words had struck a little too close. Blake's voice dropped lower, his tone protective. No one should be able to hurt you, Iris. Don't ever let them, especially not a man. The way he said her name, soft but laced with something possessive, sent a tremor through her chest. Her heart pounded harder. Their eyes locked. The space between them seemed to shrink all at once. Blake leaned in slightly, voice barely above a whisper. I want to touch you, but only if you're not afraid. Iris's breath caught. A swirl of curiosity, fear, and raw desire welled inside her. She gave the slightest nod. Blake slowly reached out, his palm brushing her cheek. His fingers traced her skin with a gentle touch, warmth seeping into her. Iris closed her eyes, trembling under the weight of the moment. You're more fragile than I expected, Blake murmured, and something that rare. I don't let go of easily. There was a dark, dangerous pull beneath his words, possessive, intense. It wrapped around her, sinking into her bones. In that instant, Iris felt it deep inside her. Blake Harrington wasn't a safe man, but she didn't want safety. She didn't want to run the moment the tension began to pull tight. Blake remained seated, watching. Iris stood at the window, fingers laced together, staring out at the city below. That familiar restless ache was building inside her. She felt both protected and trapped at once. She could feel his eyes on her, quiet, steady. Then his voice drifted from behind, smooth, but carrying a faint undercurrent of warning. You're not thinking of making an escape, are you? Iris gave a soft smile but didn't turn. Her gaze stayed on the lights outside. No, it's just a strange night. Blake rose from his seat. His steps were quiet, deliberate, not too fast, careful not to cross a line, but close enough that his presence was undeniable. Is this your first time being let down? The question sounded simple, but there was an edge beneath it, a quiet danger. He could see right through to her vulnerable spot. Iris turned her gaze back to him. She swallowed. I guess it's never cut this deep before. Blake studied her for a few beats, his eyes locked on hers. You've stayed. Too untouched, Iris. The words sounded like praise, but there was a flicker of possession in his eyes. If someone hadn't shown you how dirty this world can be, would you still have come here with me? Iris couldn't answer, because she didn't know. Blake took the silence as invitation. He moved in a little closer, just a breath away now. His gaze traced her face, like he was memorizing every inch. Iris. His voice was low now, thick with tension. I don't let many people into my world, into my space. But right now, I don't want to let you go. That's new for me. For the first time, Iris caught a spark of something raw in his eyes, something unguarded, hungry. For a moment, they stood caught in that charged air, neither one breathing. Then, as if forcing himself, Blake straightened, shoulders back, the cool mask slipping back over his features. Of course, he said, voice more composed. If you'd like, the guest room is yours. You're welcome to stay tonight. Inside her chest, the conflict flared again. Should she leave, or surrender to the storm gathering in this dangerous man? Quietly, she nodded. I'll stay. Iris sat alone in the guest room Blake had shown her. The space was dimly lit, lined with expensive art and perfectly arranged furnishings. It felt less like a bedroom and more like a curated gallery. A restless energy twisted in her stomach. Blake. His presence alone threw her heart out of rhythm. There was something about him, a pull that both unsettled her and made her feel strangely safe, yet almost captive. Outside the door, she heard footsteps, slow, deliberate. He'd been standing there, lingering longer than she expected. Then, a soft knock. May I come in? Iris hesitated for a beat, then gave a small nod. The door opened. Blake stepped inside, calm and composed, that intense gaze of his settling on her, like he was imprinting every detail of her onto his mind. "I figured you wouldn't be sleeping," he said, voice low but laced with tension. Iris lowered her eyes. "My mind's kind of racing, and I never sleep well in new places. Takes me a while." Blake took a few slow steps toward her, measured, intentional. "I know the feeling," he murmured. A brief silence followed. "If there's anything that would help you feel more safe," he added softly, "you only have to tell me." He edged a little closer, but not too much, holding right at the boundary, not a step further, not a step less. Iris's chest tightened. She held her breath. His words weren't just words. There was something unspoken beneath them. "Will you let me?" Now his voice was barely a whisper. Iris glanced away but gave no answer. There was no escape. She knew that much. Blake reached out slowly, his fingertips brushing her cheek. His touch was feather-light, sending a shiver through her skin. His hand drifted into her hair, pushing it gently from her face. It wasn't clear. Was it tenderness? Was it desire? Maybe both. Even Iris couldn't tell. Then his tone darkened, deep and low. "I would never harm you, Iris, but to protect you from everything out there. First, you have to belong to me." Her breathing grew ragged. There was nothing romantic in those words. It was power, control, and something darker still, an urge to possess. Almost instinctively, Iris pressed her back to the wall. As Blake stepped in closer. Just one deliberate step. Iris turned her eyes toward him. The turmoil inside her was written all over her face. Was she afraid? Maybe a little. But strangely, she didn't want to run. If anything, she wanted to stay. Blake's fingers traced from her hair, down along her cheekbones, then lower, skimming softly along her neck. He read the hesitation in her gaze, and once again he pulled back, still in control. For now, he drew a deep breath. "I'll leave you be tonight, Iris," he said, voice low and steady. But his eyes flickered darkly. "Just know this. You've stepped into my world now, and I don't let go easily." He turned and walked slowly toward the door. At the threshold, he glanced back one more time. "Sleep well, Iris." The door clicked shut, and somehow the air in the room felt heavier. Iris lay back on the bed, heart racing wildly. Would she be able to sleep? She doubted it, but one thing was clear. She had just stepped straight into the eye of the storm that was Blake Harrington. She pressed her head into the pillow, squeezing her eyes shut, trying to block out the image of Thorne, of that naked scene burned into her mind. But instead, another vision took hold. Blake, so close she could feel his breath. Her whole body shuddered. She brought trembling fingers to her lips, wondering what it would feel like when he finally kissed her. Even imagining it sent a sharp electric thrill through her. As the first light of dawn crept through the windows, Iris opened her eyes. She couldn't exactly say she'd slept, more like kept her eyes closed, trying to quiet the war raging in her mind. The apartment was still. Everything in Blake's place remained perfectly arranged, too perfect almost. There was a calm in the air that felt almost artificial. She rose, her steps tentative, and left the guest room. In the corner of the open living room, Blake was seated, dressed impeccably in a gray robe, eyes focused on his laptop. He commanded the space without trying. The entire room seemed wrapped in his presence. He looked up, those sharp blue eyes meeting hers. But this time, a faint smile softened his lips. "You're awake." His voice was calm as ever, but underneath, like always, there was tension thrumming beneath the surface. "I didn't sleep very well," Iris admitted. Of course, she kept to herself the truth, that in the dark, thinking of him, she'd ended up pleasuring herself. Blake stood and crossed the room with effortless grace. Reaching out, he ran his fingers lightly through her hair. "I made you breakfast," he said, the low tone of his voice sending a flicker of heat through her belly. He moved to the sleek kitchen, poured fresh orange juice in a steaming cup of coffee, and set them on the wide counter. Then he slid a stool beneath her. "Sit. Stay. I'm about to make you the best scrambled eggs of your life." Mesmerized, Iris followed his instructions without a word. She perched on the stool, watching as he moved with casual precision at the stove. Sipping her juice, she let her gaze drift over him. The way he cracked the eggs with a smooth flick of the wrist, the unexpected care in his hands, the sharp lines of his toned legs beneath the short robe, the edge of an expensive pair of boxers just visible. How had this man, this dark, magnetic force, walked so easily into her life? On a night like last night. "You're quiet," Blake remarked without looking up, working the eggs gently in the pan. Iris gave a faint smile. "I guess I'm just surprised. The way you're treating me, it's not what I expected." Blake set the plate down in front of her. Scrambled eggs, slices of tomato, cucumber, and cheese, all arranged with deliberate care. With slow, measured movements, he cut a small bite and brought the fork toward her lips. Iris met his gaze, unblinking. She reached for the fork, her fingers brushing his. Blake's eyes were unmistakably fixed on her mouth. As she slowly tasted the bite, letting it linger on her tongue, a sudden thought flickered through her. "He's treating me like a doll." Her voice broke the moment. "Do you usually take this much care of women?" Blake's lips curled into a faint, teasing smile. "Not really," he replied in that smooth, assured tone. "Most would say I'm rather detached." "That's not the impression I'm getting," Iris answered softly, a shy, almost playful smile tugging at her lips. Blake shifted closer, now leaning across the counter, arms braced, watching her with intent focus. "You're not like other women," he murmured. That familiar rush stirred inside her again, every inch of her aware of his nearness. Iris swallowed, her voice caught. "Are you planning to watch me eat this whole thing?" A deep chuckle rumbled from him. "Yes." She opened her mouth to respond, but Blake was already moving ahead. "Stay here today," he said, tone smooth but edged with command. "No need to rush back to campus. Rest." Iris hesitated, brows drawing slightly. "I have finals coming up. I can't miss class." A flicker passed through Blake's eyes. Brief, but she caught it. That shadow, that undercurrent of possessiveness. He straightened, schooling his features into an easy smile. "Of course," he said smoothly, "whatever you need." But the look in his eyes said more. Control wasn't just habit for Blake. It was instinct. And Iris could feel it. He didn't like letting her walk out of his world, not even for a moment. "Wait for me before you leave," Blake said as he disappeared into his room. "I'll be ready in a minute." While he was gone, Iris wandered slowly through the apartment, taking in the space in the morning light. Charcoal, black, white, deep brown, everything was bathed in a masculine, deliberate harmony. It suits him, she thought. Dark, but warm in strange ways. Not a speck of dust anywhere. It gleamed like a laboratory, sleek and cold, yet lived in. When Blake returned, dressed in a tailored dark suit, he moved with that same unhurried grace. A faint, mysterious scent of his cologne drifted with him into the room, one she recognized from the night before. Subtle, expensive, dangerous. Iris caught herself staring for a beat. What kind of man is this, she thought. How did he even walk into my life like this, on a night like that? She quickly gathered herself. "Well, I should get going," she said softly, "and thank you for last night. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't been there." Blake smiled faintly, the corner of his mouth lifting. "Wait." He stepped closer, reaching into the inner pocket of his jacket and pulling out a small black box. Inside was a sleek, stunning bracelet. Understated, but clearly expensive. "This," he said in a low voice, "is for you. I want you to wear it." Iris hesitated, taking the bracelet into her hand. It wasn't the price that made her pause, it was something else. Blake's tone told her this wasn't just a gift. He added, voice soft but firm, "It's not just jewelry, Iris. It allows me to know where you are, that you're safe." His eyes locked with hers, holding her there. "That gives me peace of mind." Iris froze for a beat. This wasn't a gift. It was a mark, the first link in a chain. Blake seemed to read her thoughts. His voice dropped even lower, nearly rough. "I don't handle loss well, especially not you." There it was. Possessiveness, yes, but something deeper, too. Darker. Iris glanced at the bracelet again. "And what if I don't want to wear it? It looks expensive, and the idea of you tracking me, it's a little much." Blake moved closer, one fingertip under her chin, tilting her gaze up so he could see her eyes. His touch was soft, gentle, but with a weight behind it. "You never have to do anything you don't want to do," he murmured. "You can walk out that door right now, if that's what you choose. And if you do, you and I may never see each other again." Iris swallowed, her fingers still turning the bracelet in her hand. Those eyes, ice blue, unblinking, burning into her. What is it about this man? Why does he make it so hard to breathe? Iris slowly set the bracelet down on the table. She forced her gaze away from Blake's and took 5 quick steps toward the door, but then stopped. Her legs simply wouldn't carry her any further. She couldn't seem to walk out. And somehow, she didn't dare turn to face him either. Behind her, she heard Blake's footsteps approaching, steady, unhurried. He stopped right in front of her, so close she could feel the heat of his body. Without a word, he lifted the bracelet and with slow precision slipped it onto her wrist, then clicked the clasp shut. He leaned in, so close his breath brushed her lips, close enough to kiss her, but he didn't. Instead, in a low, deliberate whisper, "I'd very much like to see you back here tonight." A pause. "If you want that too, I'll find you." Iris gave a small nod, barely more than a breath, then slipped out through the door. And as it clicked shut behind her, she knew. Blake Harrington wasn't just a dangerously magnetic billionaire. His attention demanded surrender. That morning, Iris went to campus. She needed to clear her head. After swinging by her dorm room to change, she crossed to the university and headed to class. The moment she stepped in, her friends rushed over. "You okay? We texted you last night. You didn't reply," Claire said, looking worried. Iris forced a small smile. "It was complicated, I'll tell you." After class, Claire couldn't wait. She pulled Iris into the quiet cafe tucked in the corner of campus. As soon as they sat down, Claire went straight for it. "Iris, spill. What's going on?" Iris drew a long breath, hesitating for a moment. But Claire was her closest friend. If she couldn't tell her, who could she tell? Her voice low, almost unsure. "I met someone." Claire blinked. "You met someone? Named Blake?" Iris nodded. "He's very rich. Early 30s, maybe mid-30s. Insanely charismatic, handsome, and, I think, kind." Claire's eyes widened, suspicious. "Where exactly did you spend the night?" Iris's cheeks flushed, but her tone came out calm. Too calm. At his place. Even saying it, it surprised her how normal it sounded. Claire froze. "You stayed the night? At his place?" Her voice was edged with panic. "Where is this place?" Iris answered quietly. "One of those luxury towers near the Royal Grand Hotel." Claire was still in shock. "What's his last name, Iris? You know, there's only one guy living in those towers, Blake Harrington, the tech billionaire. I read about him on GQ's Instagram last month. The headline was something like, 'Brilliant, charismatic young billionaire who always chooses solitude, or something like that. Iris pressed her lips together. I don't know. Could be. Claire immediately pulled out her phone, typing fast. Look, this is him. She held the screen out. There he was, Blake, in a black shirt and black trousers, hands in his pockets, standing on a sleek rooftop terrace, city lights sprawling behind him. Iris's stomach flipped, tiny butterflies taking flight. An involuntary smile tugged at her lips. Yes, Claire, that's him. Claire's eyes widened, her voice dropped to a whisper. Blake Harrington? The Blake Harrington? You spent the night with him? Iris nodded. Yes. Claire stared, almost breathless. Iris, I've heard things about that man. He's dangerous. All that money, all that power, and the way he plays with women. No one really knows him, never lets anyone in. She lowered her voice further, eyes serious. He may be insanely handsome, but something about him gives me the creeps. Like American Psycho creepy. Remember? The movie? Christian Bale. Gorgeous, charming, but psycho. Claire leaned in closer. Tell me, how far did things go? Iris looked away. Nothing's happened. Not yet, but I'm all over the place. He's been kind, really kind, but also controlling. Like protective, but under that... Claire's gaze sharpened. Iris, please, guys like that always seem protective at first. Then they smother you. Don't get in too deep. Iris couldn't answer. The turmoil inside her chest only grew heavier. And just then, the cafe door swung open. Thorne. The moment she saw him, Iris's breath caught. Her stomach knotted. Claire shot a glare in his direction. Thorne strode straight to their table. Iris, we need to talk. Iris stood up. There's nothing to talk about, Thorne. It's over. Thorne's voice rose sharply. Please. I know there's no excuse for what I did. But I guess I can't lose you. Leave, Thorne, Iris growled. I don't want to see you. Claire looked ready to intervene, when the deep purr of an engine rolled in from outside. A sleek, black SUV pulled up smoothly to the curb. The moment they saw the man who stepped out, both Claire and Thorne froze. Blake, cool, composed, exuding raw charisma with every step. He strode toward the cafe with an air of total command. Thorne narrowed his eyes. Who the hell is that? As Blake entered, the entire atmosphere shifted. The room seemed to tilt around him. Every eye tracked his movements as he walked, unhurried, straight toward Iris. I came to get you, he said simply, his voice low but undeniable. Iris stared at him, startled. How? Then her gaze dropped instinctively to her wrist, to the bracelet. Thorne looked between them, confused, then furious. Who are you? He hissed at Blake. And where the hell are you taking her? What the fuck is going on here? Blake's eyes cut toward Thorne. Cool, assessing, predatory. Thorne puffed up, stepping forward. She's mine. Get the fuck away from her. Blake didn't answer. For a few beats, heavy silence stretched across the room. Then Thorne lunged forward in anger, throwing a punch. But Blake was faster. He swayed aside. The blow missed clean. In a blur, he seized Thorne's wrist in an iron grip. His voice came out like steel, low and dangerous. Try that again, and I'll break your fucking hand. Thorne recoiled, clutching his wrist. His bravado cracked. Without another glance at the man, Blake reached for Iris. His grip on her wrist was firm, possessive, yet careful. You're not staying here, Iris, he said, voice cold as ice. Part of Iris wanted to say no, to resist, but her body moved on instinct. Her heart thudded, breath catching, tangled in the familiar web of fear and strange submission. Without another word, Blake drew her close. Turning, he led her straight out, past the gawking patrons, and into the waiting SUV. Claire watched them disappear into the city streets, stunned, helpless, her heart racing. Blake's apartment was quiet. But the tension from the scene at the cafe still lingered between them. A pulse beneath their skin. This time, though, Blake was showing her a different side. He was in the kitchen, preparing dinner with his own hands. Iris sat perched at the edge of the counter, watching him, just like she had that morning. "You like cooking?" she said, a soft smile tugging at her lips. Blake glanced at her as he set 2 wine glasses on the counter. "I like control, Iris, in everything, business, relationships, the kitchen." His voice carried that deep, steady tone again. "Things I can't control. They make me restless." Then he shifted the subject. "That guy earlier. Your boyfriend?" Iris turned her gaze out toward the city lights. "He was... until last night. So he's the one who hurt you." Blake's words came casually as he poured the wine. Iris gave a small nod. There was a pause. Then she asked quietly, "How did you take control of everything, Blake? How did you get here?" Blake stilled for a moment, then looked over at her. "I came from nothing." His voice was lower now. "My father lost everything when I was 17, bankrupt. I got kicked out of school. No money, no help. If you don't fight, you drown. So I fought." Then his eyes locked onto hers. "And now, I have it all. But the fear of losing things, that never really goes away." In that moment, Iris glimpsed something beneath his hard exterior, a deep loneliness she hadn't seen before. Blake took a slow sip of his wine, never taking his eyes off her. Then, licking a small drop of wine from the corner of his mouth, he said, "Promise me something, Iris." His voice darkened slightly. "Don't let anyone hurt you. Not ever again. If you don't allow it, no one can touch you." After dinner, they sat across from each other at the table. Their wine glasses clinked softly in the dim light, with the city sprawling below them through the glass. Blake watched her over the rim of his glass. "You're drinking it wrong." Iris lifted an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" Blake rose from his chair and came up behind her. With slow fingers, he brushed her hair back from her shoulders. "Watch," he murmured, voice low, breath close to her ear. He reached around, took her wine glass, and held it to her lips. "When you take the first sip..." He tilted the glass slightly, just brushing it to the corner of her mouth. "Let it sit for a moment, then let it slowly roll over your tongue. Feel the entire taste, every note." Iris felt her pulse quicken. Blake's breath at her neck was like a wave of heat rolling down her spine. As Blake pulled the glass away from her lips, a small drop of wine slipped from the corner of Iris's mouth. She instinctively raised her hand to wipe it, but Blake leaned in first. Slowly, deliberately, his lips brushed her skin. With a soft flick of his tongue, he caught the stray drop. Iris's breath caught in her throat. The room seemed to tilt around her. Her heart was racing, her head spinning, and it wasn't from the wine. In that moment, she understood. This wasn't just about teaching her how to drink. Blake was drawing her in, setting the pace, pulling her deeper under his spell with every move. The wine left a warm, burning trail down her throat. As they sat so close now, bodies nearly touching, Blake rested one hand on the back of the couch, eyes locked on her as he took another sip of wine. The room had gone still. The quiet was so thick she could hear her own breath. Even her swallow sounded loud in her ears. After a moment, Blake's hand moved to her shoulder. "I left something on the bed, so you'll be more comfortable," he said softly. "If you'd like, go put it on." Iris moved, as if in a trance. In the bedroom, she found a crisp, white men's shirt laid across the bed. Soft, slightly oversized, the sleeves casually rolled. She slipped out of her clothes and pulled the shirt on. The fabric was cool at first, then soothing, like a caress. As she glanced at herself in the mirror, a strange thought struck her. "I've never looked this good in anything before." She undid the third button. Barefoot, the hem of the shirt brushing her thighs, she walked back out. Slow steps, aware of every movement. The way Blake's eyes followed her, full of heat and raw appreciation, made her skin tingle. That look alone set a spark inside her. Iris sat beside him again, glancing toward him beneath lowered lashes. A subtle fire was blooming inside her. Her cheeks were flushed. She could feel it. Blake leaned closer, his fingertips tracing her cheek. "You know," he murmured. "I'll never rush you, Iris. I only want you when you're ready. But when you are, you'll be mine." Iris swallowed hard. Her eyes were starting to sting with unshed tears, a strange mix of emotion rising in her. A blush of shame crept across her skin. "Blake." Her voice was soft, unsteady. I've never been with anyone. Not all the way." Blake's gaze deepened. For just a moment, a flicker of surprise crossed those piercing eyes, but he didn't say a word. For several long seconds, the only sound in the room was their breathing. Iris finally spoke again. "Even with Thorn, there was a night I decided I was ready, that I wanted to go through with it. But when the moment came, my body just froze. It wouldn't let me. Something inside me said stop." She swallowed hard. I didn't understand it then, but now, I think, maybe it just wasn't the right person. Blake's fingers brushed under her chin, tilting her face toward him. Their eyes locked, a slow, steady pull between them. "And now," he whispered, "if I touched you, would your body still say stop?" Iris's breath caught. Her lips trembled. I don't know," she whispered back. Blake leaned in, his lips grazing softly along the corner of her mouth. "As much, or as little, as you allow me, Iris, only what you allow." Without another word, Blake scooped her up in his arms. He carried her toward his bedroom, a space shrouded in deep shadows, all sleek blacks and dark woods. The bed sat on a raised platform, a few steps leading up to it. Iris couldn't help a soft laugh escape her lips. Who puts stairs on their bed? Blake caught the amusement in her eyes and gave a rare smile of his own. He laid her gently on the bed. Slowly, deliberately, he shed his shirt, then slid in beside her. Iris turned toward him instinctively, her senses full of the heady scent of his skin, the raw warmth of his body. Blake took her hand, guiding it to rest against his chest, over the slow, steady beat of his heart. Then he buried his face softly in her hair, breathing her in. And that night, no lines were crossed, no rush, no pressure. Just Iris, curled into Blake's chest, Blake's face pressed into her hair, as they drifted into sleep. Both knowing, somewhere deep down, this storm was only just beginning. When morning came, Iris woke with her head resting on Blake's chest. He was already awake, his fingers slowly tracing delicate lines down her back, as if unwilling to break the connection between them. There was silence in the room, not peaceful, but heavy. A silence thick with possession. Blake lowered his head slightly, his voice a soft whisper against her hair. "Watching you sleep, it brings a different kind of peace." Iris tried to quiet her racing heart. She could feel the dark undertone beneath his words, but part of her still didn't want to pull away. A part of her still wanted to surrender. Blake remained quiet a moment longer, then asked softly, "Do you have classes today?" "I have 2 lectures this afternoon," Iris murmured. Blake shifted, that familiar gleam of possession sparking in his gaze. "I'll take you." Iris tensed slightly. Blake, dropping me at the dorm would attract attention. He narrowed his eyes, holding silent for a moment. "I don't care what people think." His voice lowered, darkening further. "You belong to me now. No one else's opinions, or stares, matter." Iris couldn't answer. She could feel herself sinking deeper into his control, and yet she wasn't pulling back. The feeling of belonging to him was dangerously intoxicating. When morning came, Iris stirred awake to find herself curled against Blake's chest, her cheek pressed to his bare skin. He was already awake. His fingers moved in a slow, unbroken rhythm down the line of her back, as if tracing something only he could see, as if anchoring her there. The room was quiet. Not a peaceful stillness, but a silence so thick it seemed to hum with possession. Blake lowered his head slightly, his voice threading through her hair. "Watching you sleep." A soft breath. "It does something to me, calms me, in a way nothing else does." Iris closed her eyes for a moment, trying to steady her racing heart. She could feel it, that current beneath his words, the dark tide, and yet she didn't move away. Some part of her no longer wanted to. Some part of her had already surrendered. After a long beat, Blake spoke again, his voice low, calm. "Do you have classes today?" She nodded lightly against him. "2, this afternoon." Blake shifted slightly, and when she looked up, his gaze was locked on her, that same intense spark gleaming there. "I'll drive you," she tensed. "Blake." You showing up at the dorm would turn heads. His lips curved, not quite a smile. His eyes narrowed slightly. "Iris, I don't concern myself with what others think." And though his tone remained smooth, something deeper bled into it. Darker, more possessive. "You belong to me now. No one's opinion, no stray glance, has any say in that." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. The words wouldn't come, because the truth was she could feel it, the way his control was already weaving around her. And more dangerously, how easily she was letting it happen. Later that afternoon, on campus. After her class, Iris met Claire at the usual spot, a small table tucked into the corner of the busy campus cafe. Claire leaned in as soon as they sat, her voice a hurried whisper. "Iris, what are you doing? You can't seriously think this is safe." Iris wrapped her fingers around her coffee cup, her knuckles pale. "He hasn't hurt me, Claire. Not yet." A breath. "But I know." She looked away. "There's something dark in him. I can feel it." Claire's gaze sharpened, her jaw set. "You need to get out, now, before you're in too deep. Because once you are, you won't come back from it." And that was what haunted Iris the most, because somewhere inside she already knew. She was too close to turning back. Movement flickered across the room. Something shifted in the air. Iris glanced up, and there he was. Blake, standing across the cafe watching them, not moving. No urgency in him at all, but the weight of his gaze. It pinned her in place, and when his eyes slid toward Claire, the cold edge of it was unmistakable. Iris's breath caught. She could feel her pulse racing. Claire followed her line of sight and stiffened. "That's him?" Iris gave the smallest nod. Blake began to walk, slow, deliberate. Every head seemed to turn as he passed, as if the room itself shifted around him. When he reached their table, he spoke her name, quiet, certain. "Iris." Claire's entire posture tensed, but Blake simply inclined his head. Polite. "Claire, isn't it? Iris told me about you." Claire's smile was thin, eyes cool. "And I've heard of you." Blake's gaze lingered on her a moment longer, any trace of amusement now gone. "I trust you're giving Iris wise counsel." Claire didn't flinch. She's capable of making her own choices. His gaze darkened, faintly. His voice dropped, silk over steel. "I'm glad we agree." Then Blake placed a hand on Iris's shoulder, slow, deliberate, and gave the slightest firm squeeze. "It's time to go." Iris rose, her movements quiet. Claire caught her gaze, one last look that all but pleaded, "Don't." But Iris simply lowered her head. Blake led her outside, into that sleek black car that seemed to swallow light wherever it went. As he guided her into the passenger seat, his face remained unreadable, a perfect mask. But once he slid behind the wheel, His voice came low, darker this time, sliding beneath her skin. "That friend of yours, she's trying to pull you away from me." Iris swallowed hard. "Claire's just worried, that's all." A faint curve touched Blake's lips, not quite a smile, more the shadow of one. "People always have opinions about things they don't possess. But you've brought yourself so close to me, Iris. No one will be allowed to touch what's mine now." He glanced sideways, his words dropping almost to a whisper. "And I don't let go of bonds. Ever." The car slipped through the city, gliding toward the heart of downtown. Beside him, Iris sat still, her pulse thudding louder than the hum of the engine. Blake's hand rested casually near the gear shift, but now and then his fingertips would drift, feather-light, over her skin, tracing the slender line of her wrist, grazing the smooth surface of the bracelet he'd fastened there. The message in the touch was clear. "I want you here, with me, always." It was Blake who broke the silence. "I made plans for tonight." Iris turned her head, trying to steady her breath. "Plans?" His gaze stayed fixed on the road, his tone smooth, assured. "Dinner, outside, somewhere very special." A tiny breath escaped her lips. Just days ago she'd been tangled in the mess of Thorn, and now she was sitting here, in this man's world, in his orbit, swept up before she even knew what had happened. It was dizzying. And yet, God help me, she thought. I don't want it to stop. Blake continued, voice lower now. Just the two of us. A night that's ours. Her chest tightened. The intensity of his attention, the speed of it, the weight of it, should have sent her running. But instead, she felt herself sinking deeper. When they arrived back at Blake's penthouse, the air inside was warm, quiet. Blake moved across the room with that same effortless grace, setting the space alive. He crossed to the sound system, selected a soft jazz track, and lowered the volume until it hovered faintly, a velvet hum in the background. Peeling off his jacket, he glanced back at her. "We'll leave in about 2 hours. I'm going to shower." He started toward the hall but paused, letting the words hang in the air. That knowing smile curling at the edges of his mouth. "There's a surprise for you on the bed. We're going somewhere elegant. I hope you'll approve." Iris watched as Blake disappeared down the hallway. She drifted toward the floor-to-ceiling windows, drawn by the city lights shimmering beneath the darkening sky. From this height, the river sliced through the skyline in ribbons of silver and shadow. She'd lived here 3 years, and yet she had never seen this view. Not from his perspective. Her reflection flickered in the glass. Jeans, a white tee, leather jacket. A faint frown tugged at her lips. "I look out of place here," she thought. The thought echoed sharper than expected. For a heartbeat, her fingers twitched at her side, half ready to leave, to bolt for the door. What am I even doing here? But then, that undercurrent inside her surged, something hot and restless, tethered more to instinct than reason. She hadn't thought of Thorn in days now, not once. Blake had swept into her life like a storm, unraveling her neatly wound thoughts. She had believed she'd loved Thorn. There had been fun, yes, flirtation, romance, moments. But nothing like this, nothing that sank teeth into her veins. She'd nearly surrendered to Thorn once, nearly. But her body had locked, her mind barricaded. Something inside her had whispered no. She hadn't understood then. She did now. Maybe that's why he'd cheated, because she couldn't give him what he wanted. The thought stabbed deeper than she liked. Her reflection in the glass was suddenly hard to face. She knew her own desire. She could feel it stirring even now, but her body, her mind. It had walled her off before, made her feel less woman, more broken. And this she didn't want to think about. Not tonight. Turning away, Iris moved through the penthouse, her bare feet quiet on the gleaming floors. In the bedroom, draped over the bed, waited a dress, a flowing slip of champagne silk. After a quick shower, her skin still damp and flushed, she eased the gown over her frame. The silk slid over her like water, cool, sensual, clinging in all the right places. She studied herself in the mirror. "I've never worn anything like this," she thought. There was no vulgarity, no cleavage, no flash, just pure, minimal elegance, and somehow that made it all the more dangerous. Beside the dress had been a small box. Inside, heels, strappy sandals in the same soft champagne tone. Perfectly her size. Blake had thought of everything. She reached for her makeup bag, swiping a sheer peach gloss across her lips, dabbing the faintest flush to her cheeks. That was all. Nothing else felt necessary. When she finally stepped into the main room, Blake had already turned at the sound of her arrival. He was devastating in a dark, sharply cut suit, cool, composed, and yet there was that undercurrent again, the heat behind the ice. With slow, measured steps, he crossed to her, a small velvet box in his hand. Opening it revealed a pair of luminous, pearl-drop earrings, gleaming soft as the dress itself. "Let's finish the look," he murmured, voice a velvet thread. He took his time, sliding the earrings into place with fingers that brushed the delicate curve of her ears. His breath lingered near her skin, close enough to steal it. Then, from his pocket, another small bottle, fragrance this time. Without a word, he opened it, poured a single drop onto his fingertip, and touched it to the tender skin behind her ear. Iris shivered. His fingertip traced slowly, down along the curve of her neck, drifting to her nape, lower still toward her collarbone. The scent hit her. First jasmine, light and bright, then deeper notes of amber, a whisper of lavender threading beneath. "You're ready," Blake said at last, lips curling into that familiar half-smile. A command, not a question. "Let's go." As the black velvet doors of the restaurant swung open, Blake leaned in, his breath hot against her ear. "You take my breath away, Iris." Then his arm slid around her waist, pulling her firmly to him. "Tonight, everyone will know you're mine." Iris felt her heart kick hard against her ribs. She couldn't stop the slight tremble that chased down her spine. Blake had brought her to one of the city's most exclusive French restaurants, sleek, decadent, and unforgivingly public. The moment they crossed the threshold, camera flashes erupted. Paparazzi, already waiting. Blake didn't flinch. If anything, he seemed perfectly accustomed to it. His grip on her waist tightened. "If you start to feel dizzy," he murmured low, "tell me." Inside, they were led to a table in full view of the room, center stage beneath glittering lights. Heads turned. Eyes followed them, tracking Blake Harrington, rarely seen in public with any woman, much less one this young, this innocent-looking. Throughout the meal, Blake remained composed and entirely possessive. Every move, every glance made his claim clear. His hand would occasionally find hers, sometimes drifting to her thigh beneath the table. Sometimes his gaze would burn across her skin, undressing her slowly with every look. Iris flushed beneath the weight of it. Embarrassed, yes. But beneath that, an undeniable heat, a thrill. By the time they left, more flashes popped at the door, and Blake's hold on her waist was unyielding now, drawing her close to his side. In the car, Iris exhaled in shallow breaths, her pulse racing. Blake slid behind the wheel but didn't start the engine. He turned toward her instead, his voice low and proud. "You handled that perfectly." A pause. "Tonight, they all saw it. You're my woman now, Iris." Her cheeks flamed, but instead of shrinking from the words, something deeper stirred inside her. A heady rush, a dangerous craving. Blake's eyes never left hers as he turned the car away from the glittering restaurant and toward his penthouse. And Iris knew, tonight, tonight would not be like the last. When they returned to the penthouse, Blake unlocked the door and stepped aside, his movements unhurried, measured, the kind of composure that didn't need to be spoken aloud. Iris stepped inside, the soft click of her heels the only sound in the vast space. Blake followed, closing the door behind him with a low thud. He moved fluidly, slipping off his jacket with a casual grace, fingers sliding loose the knot of his tie, then one by one unfastening his cufflinks, each gesture deliberate, as though every second was exactly as long as it needed to be. And all the while, his gaze never once wavered from her. In the low lighting, his shirt hung open at the collar, the fine curve of his throat exposed, the slender band circling his wrist catching a faint glint. As they entered the living room, music was already playing, no longer jazz but something slower, darker, a low, pulsing rhythm that drifted through the room like a secret, velvet, soft, and intimate, wrapping itself around them both. Blake crossed to the bar, poured a glass of wine, the crimson liquid swirling deep in the crystal. He brought it to her, the stem cool against her fingers as she took it from him. "Tonight mattered to me," he said at last, voice low, resonant, with the steady weight of something that went deeper than casual words. "To be seen with you, for everyone to know exactly who you belong to." Iris wrapped her fingers tighter around the glass, trying to still the faint tremor in her hands, though she knew Blake had already noticed. He stepped closer, slowly, purposefully, until he stood just before her. One hand lifted, his thumb grazing her cheek with the lightest of touches, not hurried, not hesitant, simply certain. "Are you cold?" His voice dropped softer now, velvet-edged. "Or is it me that's making you tremble?" Iris looked up, eyes drawn helplessly to his. She couldn't find the words. The answer was there in her gaze, clear as day. Blake's touch drifted lower, his fingers tracing the line of her jaw, tilting her chin with careful ease. And then, he didn't move. He didn't kiss her. He waited, still patient, letting the thickening tension hum between them until her very breath seemed caught in her throat. "Tell me," he murmured then, his breath warm against her skin. "In this moment, do you want to run from me? Or stay?" Her lips parted, a faint, uneven breath escaping, the words lost somewhere between heart and throat. She couldn't run. She didn't want to. And from the knowing glimmer in Blake's eyes, he already understood. And then, Blake's lips captured hers, fierce and unrelenting. It wasn't a kiss, it was a claiming, a deep, searing pull that made her knees weaken. His mouth moved against hers with a slow, punishing hunger, as if he'd been holding himself back for far too long. Iris's breath caught, her fingers clutching at his shirt, trying to anchor herself, but the moment was already pulling her under, dragging her into a heat she couldn't resist. Her grip on the wineglass faltered, fingers trembling. Blake noticed. Without breaking the kiss, one hand reached smoothly to take the glass from her, setting it aside with casual precision, his other arm sliding firmly around her waist, pulling her flush against him. Through the delicate fabric of her dress, she felt him. His body, solid, warm, deliberate, every inch of him against every inch of her. And his mouth, devouring her breath, stealing every ounce of resistance she had left. His hands began to move, slow and knowing, gliding over her curves, setting her skin alight beneath silk and satin, awakening her with every passing second. When his lips traveled lower, down the soft line of her throat, Iris gasped, her head tipping back instinctively, surrendering to the fire that was spreading fast through her veins. And then, his voice. Low, rough, so close it felt as though it vibrated through her bones. "You know, when I dressed you in that gown and brought you here tonight, I told myself I would wait, that I would be patient." A pause. His mouth brushed the sensitive hollow beneath her ear. But patience is becoming impossible. Another kiss. Hotter now, his lips trailing down her neck, tasting her. Iris's knees nearly gave way, her body no longer hers to command. Without warning, Blake swept her into his arms, strong and unyielding. Before she could protest, before she could even think, he was carrying her, those long, measured strides taking them into the shadowed bedroom. The black-walled space swallowed them whole, a den of want and shadows. At the edge of the raised platform bed, he paused. He set her down, slow and deliberate, letting her feet touch the floor again. But his hands didn't leave her. Blake's gaze locked onto hers, an intensity that burned through the dark. "I gave you my word, Iris. Nothing happens, unless you want it." His fingers drifted, light, teasing, sliding along the delicate strap of her dress. But he didn't pull. He waited, not moving, not speaking, watching her, holding the tension as though the entire world had narrowed to this single moment, this choice. And Iris, she knew there was no going back. Her mind might scream run, but her heart, her body, every breath she took now whispered only one truth. She couldn't leave this man. Not now, not ever. As Blake eased the thin strap of her dress from her shoulder, his other hand found the zipper at her back, slowly drawing it down with an agonizing patience. And, as the silk and satin slid from her skin, pooling at her feet like water, Iris suddenly felt a rush of vulnerability. The full weight of her nakedness in front of him pressed down on her. Instinctively, her arms rose to shield her breasts, an involuntary act of modesty. Blake's lips curved into a faint smile. He leaned in, voice a husky whisper against her skin. "Do you want me, Iris?" His mouth found her throat again, hot and unrelenting. Slowly, deliberately, it traveled downward, over the curve of her collarbone, to her breasts. A soft gasp escaped her lips as her hands abandoned their attempt at modesty, and instead clung to his body. In one fluid motion, Blake lifted her into his arms and lowered her gently onto the bed. As he unbuttoned his shirt, one button at a time, Iris couldn't tear her gaze away. The sculpted lines of his chest, the taut muscle of his abdomen. In the low light of the room, his bronzed skin gleamed like polished stone. Blake's hands traced her body, moving from the graceful line of her neck to the soft swell of her breasts, then lower, to her waist, her hips. She arched beneath his touch, a tremor running through her. His voice, deeper now, raw and thick with desire, broke through the haze between them. "Say it for me," he whispered. "I need to hear it." As his mouth moved down, over her belly, her breath caught in her throat, an unbidden moan slipping from her lips. His hands explored her, inch by slow, aching inch, leaving no part of her untouched, no inch unclaimed. In that moment, there was no room left for hesitation. For the first time in her life, Iris knew exactly what she wanted. To surrender, to give herself completely to this man in a way she'd never given to anyone. "Yes," she breathed, trembling. "I want you. I want this." Blake's mouth captured hers again, fierce, possessive. Between each kiss, his voice, a dark, rumbling growl, brushed her skin. "Tell me how much you want me, Iris. Say it." His hands moved lower, trailing a molten path from her belly to the aching heat between her thighs. At her ear now, his breath searing. "Are you ready to be mine? To belong to me? Say it. Tell me. You're mine." Iris could barely breathe, her entire body quaking beneath the weight of sensation. What had this man done to her? Nothing had ever felt like this. She no longer had the will or the want to resist. "Yes," she moaned, voice breaking with need, her body arching helplessly beneath him. "I'm yours. I want you now. Please." Blake's gaze darkened. Those ocean eyes now deepened to indigo near black with pure, raw hunger. With a growl, his hands gripped her hips, firm, unyielding, closing the last of the distance between them. Iris whimpered, her fingers tangling desperately in his thick, dark hair as her body writhed beneath him. Again and again, through ragged breaths and fierce kisses, Blake whispered against her lips, "You're mine. Get it? You're my woman, Iris. Every inch of you, your body, your breath, your soul, belongs to me." And that night, again and again, she became his. Over and over, beneath fiery kisses, whispered vows, and breathless cries, the night unfolded. A night unlike any she had ever known, where surrender became her freedom, and Blake her undoing. The early morning light was barely slipping through the dark curtains when Iris slowly blinked her eyes open, still tangled around Blake's warm, solid body. It felt less like waking, more like surfacing from some deep, heavy sleep. Blake was already awake, his eyes on her. His fingers traced soft, lazy circles along her lower back, drawing goosebumps to her skin. His mouth found hers in an unhurried kiss, warm, lingering, claiming, "You are the first beauty of this morning," he murmured, voice rough with sleep and something deeper. Iris could still feel the weight of the night in her body, the delicious ache in her thighs, the echo of him between her legs, the lingering pulse of pleasure that had carried her until exhaustion took over. Her cheeks flushed at the memory, and she instinctively burrowed her face against his chest. Blake drew back the silk sheet just a little, fingers ghosting along the slope of her shoulder and arm. "Last night." His voice dropped, a low growl against her skin. "Having you, there are no words for it." A shy smile tugged at her lips as she wrapped her arms tighter around his waist. The warmth of his bare skin beneath her palms spread straight to her core. But Blake didn't let the moment linger for long. With a sudden movement, he rolled her beneath him, gaze smoldering with a new hunger. His mouth traveled down her throat, over the delicate curve of her shoulder, down to her breasts. "I still haven't had enough of you," he whispered, voice a rough caress in her ear. "How are you feeling?" His lips brushed the shell of her ear. "Did I hurt you?" Iris bit her lip, a soft, breathless laugh escaping her. I feel like a woman." Her voice trembled with the honesty of it. Blake smiled, slow and wicked. "Yes, you are my woman now." Her fingers slid along the sculpted line of his ribs, tracing upward until they brushed against the small tattoo just beneath his shoulder blade. A delicate key entwined with a red thread, knotted tightly. "This," she whispered, fingertips lingering over the ink. "It's a key. And the thread. Why is it knotted?" Blake caught her hand in his, brought her fingers to his mouth. He kissed them, each one softly, lingering as he spoke. "Sometimes." His voice had a husky, guarded edge. "You spend years moving through life, not knowing where you belong or with whom, not even knowing what it is you're missing." His gaze flicked away for a beat. "And sometimes, fate leaves a thread, but unless you're ready, the knot won't come undone. The key stays useless. The door remains closed." Iris, propped on one elbow beneath him, watched his face intently. Blake's fingers traced her lower lip, then moved up into her hair, slowly, gently, as though committing her to memory. His gaze burned into hers, deeper, rawer now. "I've never allowed anyone to untie that knot," he murmured, voice low and rough. Then, after a long moment, his gaze deepened. "But with you, for the first time, I think I might want to." Iris met his gaze, breath quickening, her chest rising and falling with every ragged inhale. Her lips parted, voice trembling with a fragile edge of want. "Blake, I want you." A slow, knowing smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "What do you want from me, Iris?" he murmured, voice velvet dark. "Say it." "I want you," she whispered again, but it wasn't enough. "Say it," he pressed, fingertips circling her breasts with aching slowness. I need to hear you." Her breath caught. Her body arched under his touch, and when her answer came it was a low, broken moan. "I want you to take me. I want you inside me." His eyes darkened instantly, that stormy, electric blue giving way to pure hunger. With one swift motion he scooped her into his arms, movements rougher now, more desperate, as if restraint was slipping through his fingers. What began as soft morning light turned quickly into a continuation of the night's fever. Iris wound her fingers into his hair, her body yielding to his touch. But this time, Blake was slower, more deliberate, as if he wanted to memorize every inch of her, every sound she made, every trembling breath. Time lost meaning, and somewhere between his mouth and his hands, between the sharp pull of longing and the deep burn of release, Iris fell apart all over again, trembling, gasping, utterly undone in his arms. When Iris stepped into the shower, the hot water pouring over her skin seemed to slowly pull her back to herself. Her body ached, deliciously, but beyond the fatigue, there was something else. She felt different, changed. She was no longer the girl she'd been yesterday, not after Blake, after his gaze, his hands, his words, the way he had touched her beneath her skin. As she worked the lather over her body, her gaze drifted down to her wrist. The bracelet. For a moment, she hesitated, then lifted her hand to the clasp, fingers tracing over the cool metal. She tugged, pressed, twisted, but it wouldn't budge. Frowning, she tried again. Nothing. Her pulse kicked up, a faint flutter beneath her ribs. A game? A message? Deciding not to linger on it, she finished her shower and wrapped herself in a towel. When she stepped into the living room, Blake was already at the kitchen island, and what waited for her there made her breath catch. The breakfast was a work of art. Fresh squeezed orange juice, crisp croissants, thin slices of avocado, and a soft, herb-laced omelette sprinkled with mint. Everything perfectly arranged. As she approached, Blake slipped an arm around her waist, drew her close. "Good morning," he murmured, pressing a slow kiss to her lips. "For my goddess, only the best." Iris gazed at the spread, unable to hold back a soft smile. Blake certainly knew how to make a woman feel like a queen. Then, almost playfully, she glanced at her wrist. "Blake," she said lightly, "I tried to take this off in the shower." He tilted his head, amusement curling at the corner of his mouth. "You can't," he said simply. Her brows lifted in surprise. "Why not?" Blake's gaze flickered, heat shimmering beneath the smile. "Because," his voice dropped a shade deeper, "I have the key." And then his eyes locked on hers, burning with quiet promise. "You're mine now, Iris, to protect you. I need to know where you are. Always." A faint shiver danced over her skin, but she said nothing, only slipped onto the stool and reached for the coffee he poured her. As she sipped, Blake's gaze remained steady on her. "What time is your class?" he asked. 12. "I'll take you." She didn't argue, though somewhere in the back of her mind Claire's voice echoed, "You need time that's your own." When Blake dropped her off at the university, Iris couldn't shake a strange tension inside her. The luxury car had already turned heads at the school entrance. As she stepped out, Blake leaned through the open window and pressed a soft kiss to her cheek. "Don't make any plans tonight," he murmured. "I'll come for you." Iris gave a small nod, but something inside her was tightening. Later, after classes, she met Claire at the campus cafe. The moment Claire spotted her, she lit up. "Iris, I've barely seen you these past 4 days. I miss my best friend. How are you? Are you still staying with Blake?" Iris smiled softly and nodded, but Claire, always observant, narrowed her gaze and leaned in. "Iris, tell me you didn't. Did you sleep with him?" Iris glanced down at her coffee, cheeks flushing, but a smile tugged at her lips. Claire gasped, eyes wide. "Oh my God! Okay, first of all, I'm happy for you, babe. Really. I knew how much that whole thing with Thorne had been weighing on you." She reached over and squeezed Iris's arm. "But how do you feel? Really?" Iris ducked her head, almost hiding behind her hands, then let out a breathless little laugh. "Oh, Claire, it was unbelievable. Everything just happened so naturally. That tension I used to feel with Thorne, it wasn't there at all. It was like my body just opened up to him. I don't even know. Blake has this way of completely overwhelming me. All I could think about was how much I wanted him." Claire laughed and gave her a playful nudge. "You little minx." Then her smile faded a touch, concern flickering in her eyes. "But, Iris, he's treating you well, right? I mean, it's all really new. You've only known him 4 days. I just don't want to see you get hurt." Iris quickly shook her head. "He treats me like a goddess, Claire. He's so gentle. But I can't stop thinking about him. I've never felt like this before. Not for anyone. Is this love?" Claire gave a teasing little snort, sipping her soda through a straw. "Love? Maybe, maybe not. But it's definitely lust, babe." She glanced down, then her gaze caught on Iris's wrist. "Hey, that bracelet. I noticed it the other day. It looks expensive." Iris smiled faintly. "Blake gave it to me." Claire leaned in closer, curiosity sparking. "Let me see." She reached for Iris's wrist and tried to slip the bracelet off, twisting it, tugging a little. But no matter how she turned it, it wouldn't budge. Claire's eyes narrowed. "What the hell? This thing's locked on." She glanced back up at Iris, and the look in her friend's eyes gave her pause. "Wait a second. What is this, Iris?" Iris rubbed the back of her neck awkwardly. "Well, it's a bracelet, but Blake has the key. It also tracks where I am." Claire's face tightened with concern. "Iris, are you hearing yourself? That's not normal. If he wanted to track you, he could just use your phone. But this, it's practically a cuff. You let him do this?" Iris sighed, leaning back in her chair. "I know, Claire. I know it doesn't sound normal, believe me. But it's hard to explain. If anyone else had tried this, I would have said no. But with him, with Blake, it's like I feel like he could do anything to me, and I'd let him." Claire dropped her head into her hands. "God, Iris, you're scaring me. I feel like I need to save you. He's 32, nearly 10 years older than you. Insanely rich. And guys like that, they have appetites. You can't buy everything, so they chase things that most people wouldn't." Her voice dropped lower, worried. "Are you sure he's not using your innocence? Your sweetness?" Iris's eyes snapped up, flashing irritation. "What's that supposed to mean? Just because he's rich, he can't actually love me?" Claire quickly reached out, squeezing her shoulder. "That's not what I meant, babe. You know that. I'm worried. I hope this is some epic love story and that you're happy. Really. But someone needs to think about the things you're not thinking about right now." Iris nodded quickly, trying to end the conversation. "Okay. Claire, let's drop it." Claire watched her, worry still written all over her face. "All right," she said softly. "But there's a party at Martin's tonight. You'll come, right?" Just then, the loud rumble of a black SUV pulling up outside the cafe turned heads both inside and on the street. "Oh, no," Claire groaned. "Again? Do you even realize we barely get half an hour together anymore?" And then, through the glass, they saw him. Blake Harrington, dark sunglasses, tailored suit, walking in with that effortless power that drew every gaze in the room, especially from the women. He moved through the cafe with slow, deliberate steps. Every eye followed him as he came to their table. Iris rose as he reached her, and without hesitation, with the entire cafe watching, Blake kissed her deeply on the lips. "My love, how was your day? Come on, let's go home." Claire's brows shot up. "Home?" she repeated, eyes darting between them. Blake turned to her, offering a cool smile. "Claire, good to see you. Hope you're well." Then his gaze shifted back to Iris. "Come, baby, let's go." As Iris grabbed her bag and left the cafe, she mouthed a silent sorry toward Claire. Claire sat there, staring after the SUV as it disappeared down the street, her heart sinking. When they arrived at the apartment, the space had been transformed. Low lights, a perfectly set table, the room radiating an intimate warmth. Blake had cooked again, another exquisite meal. Iris felt she needed to say something. The words had been pressing at her all day. "Blake, my things are still at the dorm. That's where my routine is. And honestly, these past 4 days, apart from showing up for exams, I haven't done much. I can't even focus to study." She gave a small, nervous smile. Blake's eyes gleamed with amusement as he looked at her, his smile slow, deliberate. "I don't want to share you with school, Iris. And next week, it's over, isn't it? Your term ends?" He leaned back slightly, voice soft but firm. "Tomorrow, we'll go get your things. Move in here." Iris's breath caught. The bite of food in her mouth suddenly felt too large to swallow. "Blake, is this really a good idea? I mean, we hardly know each other." Blake set down his fork and knife, fingers steepling. "I know you well enough," he said quietly, "and I know I need you." Every moment Iris swallowed hard. "But I don't know you that well yet." Her voice was soft, uncertain. Blake's smile deepened, one corner of his mouth lifting. "Then get to know me, Iris." He tilted his head. "Are you finished with your meal?" Iris nodded slowly. Without another word, Blake rose smoothly from his seat, taking a small velvet box from his pocket. He came around behind her chair. She could feel him standing there, expecting her to stand too. So she did. "I chose this for you," he said softly. "I want to put it on you." When she opened the box, her heart pounded. A delicate necklace glittered inside, thin, elegant. Yet it was clear it was no ordinary piece of jewelry. The diamonds sparkled like stars. Blake moved behind her, gathering her hair gently aside. The necklace's cool chain brushed her skin as he clasped it around her neck. His fingers lingered, tracing the nape of her neck with maddening slowness. "Wherever you go, this stays on you." A shiver rippled through her. Her mind screamed, "This isn't right." But as Blake's touch drifted down, from her nape, over her shoulder, sliding lower, her thoughts drowned beneath the tide of want. Desire stole her breath. Without another word, Blake took her hand and slowly led her toward the bed. This time, something was different. In his other hand, an ivory silk ribbon. His voice, dark velvet in her ear. "May I blindfold you?" Iris could only nod. Blake eased her down onto the bed with exquisite care, her eyes now blindfolded, her breath already quickening with anticipation. Piece by piece, he removed her clothes, slowly, methodically, until only 2 things remained: the thin diamond necklace around her throat and the bracelet locked around her wrist. Iris could feel the air brush her bare skin, her heart racing. Every sense was heightened in the dark. Then, coolness. A sudden, sharp chill. Blake's lips pressed to her neck, but between them, a shard of ice. He dragged it slowly along her collarbone, across her chest, down the curve of her stomach. The icy touch made her shiver and arch beneath him, soft gasps escaping her lips. Every stroke, every pass of the melting ice left behind a trail of heat. Her skin grew hypersensitive, alive to every whisper of sensation. And then, as the ice traced even lower, circling, teasing, Iris could no longer tell whether the trembling in her body came from the cold or the burning ache building inside her. When finally, Blake joined with her, deep, claiming she was lost. Her body twisted beneath him, her hands fisting in the sheets, the blindfold only heightening her raw, helpless need. Each movement, each thrust, sent another wave crashing through her until Iris couldn't hold back the sounds pouring from her lips, moans that filled the room, a language of surrender. And in that spiraling haze of pleasure, one undeniable truth burned in her heart. She was his now, utterly, achingly bound to this man. And the thought of leaving, of walking away, didn't even exist anymore. All she wanted was more. The semester was coming to a close. Finals week had settled a tense, frantic energy over the entire campus. Students filled the libraries and cafes, scrambling to finish projects, cram for exams. Iris was caught in the same whirlwind of activity, except this time a different kind of excitement pulsed through her veins. That very morning, after delivering a presentation in her favorite class, Professor Marcus had approached her with an unexpected offer. "Your work was exceptional, Iris," he'd said warmly, as the classroom emptied. "Truly impressive. I'll be conducting some research prep this summer for the graduate program. If you'd be interested, I'd love to have you working with me. We could even arrange it as an official assistantship." Iris's heart had practically leapt in her chest. "Really, Professor?" she'd asked, eyes shining. "Absolutely," Marcus had smiled. "There aren't many students with your kind of talent and discipline. And you'd earn a bit of money, too," he'd added with a wink. "Think about it and let me know." Iris had nearly skipped her way down the stone paths of campus afterward. That afternoon, Blake was, once again, picking her up after class, he'd promised. But this time, Iris was eager. She wanted to tell him her news. A small voice inside her hoped he would be proud of her. This was Blake, successful, powerful, a man with years of life experience beyond her own. Somehow, Iris wanted to bring her own strength to the relationship too, to find her balance with him, if this was even a relationship at all. His SUV waited at the usual spot just outside the campus gate. Sleek and dark, it drew eyes as always. Blake stood beside it, in a sharp black shirt and dark, tailored pants, sunglasses masking his eyes, but the familiar curve at his lips said he'd already spotted her. The moment she slipped into the passenger seat, he leaned over and kissed her, a deep, lingering kiss that left her breathless. "You look pleased with yourself," Blake murmured, fingertips trailing along her cheek. "I am," Iris admitted, settling back in her seat. Her heart pounded. "Blake, I have some news. I couldn't wait to tell you." Blake started the engine. "I'm listening," he said, his voice soft but attentive. Iris gathered her breath. "Professor Marcus offered me a research assistantship. I'd be working with him this summer, getting paid, building experience for grad school. It's a really exciting opportunity." Blake's hand stilled on the gear shift. His expression hardened in an instant. "Professor?" "Yes, Marcus," Iris replied, trying to keep her enthusiasm from dimming. "What kind of professor?" His tone sharpened. "What course?" "Gender and sexuality," Iris answered. "It's part of my thesis track. The offer really caught me by surprise. I'm thrilled about it." Blake gave a short, dry laugh. "Interesting subject choice," he said slowly. "And why that area?" "I don't really know," Iris said after a few seconds of thought. "I guess. I'd already decided last year that I wanted to dive deeper into this topic. And the professor is incredibly well-rounded, very experienced. That probably influenced me too." "I see," Blake murmured. His voice had lowered, roughened. "How old is this professor?" Iris blinked. "I'm not sure. I never asked." She gave a small laugh. "Maybe 38, 39. He's young, but brilliant in the field." Blake's jaw tightened. His eyes darkened on the road ahead. "I don't want you working alone with this man." There was an edge now in his voice, sharp and unyielding. Iris frowned. "Excuse me? Why not?" "Because," Blake paused, his grip tightening on the wheel. "Call it instinct. Or something more primal. But I don't like it. Of all the students, why you? Why does he want you as his assistant?" Iris's heart sank a little. Disappointment flashed in her eyes. "Because I'm good at what I do, Blake. Why else would it be?" The tension in the car thickened. The air between them felt heavier. Blake's gaze remained hard, unrelenting. "I don't want my woman subject to that kind of attention from another man." Iris's pulse quickened. Her voice came softer but firmer. "Blake, I'm not just your girlfriend. I have my own life, my own path, and it's my right to decide where that leads." His jaw clenched tighter, the muscle ticking. "I don't know this man. I don't trust his intentions. If anything happened to you, I couldn't forgive myself." Iris drew in a breath, her eyes shimmering, but her resolve steadying. "Blake, this is about my career, my future. I can't let anyone, not Thorne, not you, no one, stand in the way of that." The car filled with icy silence. After a long moment, Iris couldn't take it anymore. "Stop the car," she said quietly. "Please, stop." Blake's foot hit the brake hard, the SUV jerking to a sudden halt. Iris opened the door without hesitation. "I won't be coming tonight," she said quietly but firmly. "I need some time to think." Before Blake could answer, she stepped out of the car. Her stride was steady, purposeful, her heels clicking softly on the pavement as she walked toward her dorm. Blake didn't move. He didn't call after her. He simply sat there, eyes tracking her, following her with that unwavering stare. All night, Iris stayed in her room. There was no text, no call, but near midnight, when she found herself restless and wandered to the window, her breath caught, there it was. His familiar black SUV parked at the edge of the campus drive. Lights off. Engine quiet. But he was there, waiting. Iris's heart skipped. A part of her longed for him, missed him, but another part wondered, was this too much? How much of herself was she willing to surrender? Would she run, or stand her ground? She pressed her forehead against the cool glass, her thoughts tangled. By dawn, the SUV was gone. The next morning at school, things only grew more complicated. Around noon, while Iris sat in the bustling campus cafe with a group of classmates, Claire suddenly gasped and shoved her phone toward her. "Iris, look at this!" A gossip site had posted the story. City's most elusive billionaire spotted with young mystery girlfriend. And there, clear as day, the photo from the restaurant. Iris in her champagne dress, Blake beside her, unmistakable. A hush fell at the table. All around, students began glancing at their screens, then at her. Murmurs started. Eyes followed. Iris groaned softly and buried her face in her hands. "Oh, God, I'm not used to this kind of attention." Claire slid closer, squeezing her shoulder. "You kind of knew this might happen, right?" she whispered. "Dating a man like that. It comes with the territory. Just don't let it get to you too much." Iris caught her breath and reached for Claire's hand. "I'm so glad you're here." Claire gave a small smile. "Thorne is going to lose his mind," she said, tapping her chin in mock thought. "These photos, well, they might stir up a little trouble, maybe just a little. But it'll blow over, eventually." "Yes, Thorne," Iris murmured almost under her breath. "He's the one who cheated. He started this whole mess, and now I'm the one turning the tables." Claire laughed softly. "I'd bet anything he's already telling everyone he's the victim now, spinning the story so he looks like the one who got hurt." She gave Iris's arm a squeeze. "Don't let it get to you. He never deserved you anyway." Claire's tone grew lighter. "Tomorrow's our last day. Can you believe it? School's almost over. You are coming to the farewell party tonight, right?" Iris gave a small, wistful smile. "I'll be there." Gathering her bag, she stood. "I've got a meeting with Professor Marcus now. I'll see you tonight." Claire arched a brow, teasing. "No Blake today?" Iris's smile turned faint. I'm giving him a little space. I just need a few days to myself. Claire shot her a thumbs up. That's my girl. As Iris walked across the quad toward the building, she spotted Professor Marcus just stepping out. Professor, I was just coming to find you. Iris! Marcus greeted her warmly. We're kicking off the new project in earnest next week. I'll email you some prep work this weekend, and be sure to handle any paperwork with the department. Since you'll be working with me this summer, do you know where you'll be staying yet? Will housing let you stay on campus? I'm not sure, Iris admitted. I'll find something. Don't worry. Marcus took a small step closer than usual. Well, if you need anything, he said, voice dipping, you know I'm here. I don't want you feeling alone in the city this summer. It's going to be an intense project, long hours, close collaboration. Iris blinked, a flicker of discomfort passing through her. Of course, Professor. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I won't disappoint you. I'm sure you won't, Marcus replied, another small step closer, too close. Iris felt her pulse quicken. This is a little too much, she thought. Why so close? I just want you to know, he continued, voice lowering, I'll support you, in every way, whatever you need. Understand? And with that, he reached out, thumb brushing lightly under her jaw in a gesture that sent a wave of cold through her. Iris instinctively stepped back. Professor Marcus, I'm not sure I follow. Marcus gave a knowing smile. I didn't realize you liked older men. But I've been watching you. You're talented. You've caught my attention. His gaze swept over her, lingering. I just wanted you to know. I'd like to be here for you in every way. Iris's heart dropped. She backed away another step, eyes wide with disappointment. I respect you, Professor, but I think you misunderstand. Before she could finish, Marcus's gaze flicked past her shoulder, and Iris turned, just in time to see Blake striding toward them, only 5 paces away, moving fast. Blake stepped between them in a blink, eyes cold, voice sharp. Get your hands off her. Then lower, voice like steel. Touch her again, and you'll never set foot in a classroom again. Iris gasped. Blake, what are you doing here? She could barely believe it. Blake shot a deadly glance at Marcus. This is the professor you were so excited about? Marcus, flustered, tried to step back, hands raised. You've got it all wrong. I was only trying to help. Blake took one deliberate step toward him. By touching her? What are you, one of those professors who prey on their students? His voice was ice cold now. Blake, stop! Iris cried out. Marcus retreated, face pale. Iris, I'm afraid this changes things. I can't offer you the position anymore. He turned and almost fled inside. Blake turned to Iris. Are you all right? But Iris stood frozen, heart pounding, tears welling in her eyes. You're everywhere, she whispered. Are you following me 24/7? What are you? A stalker? Blake's face darkened. I'm protecting you, that man. He would have taken advantage of you. Couldn't you see that? But Iris's tears were falling now. I just want to breathe. I just want to live my life without a man trying to control it. Her voice broke. Not you, not Thorne, not him, none of you. Blake reached for her arm. Iris, come here. But she pulled away, breaking free and ran, disappearing behind the trees, sobbing. Blake felt a sharp ache in his chest. He should have known. Iris was still so young. She needed freedom, not boundaries, not protection wrapped in control. And yet, protecting her was the only way he knew how to love. That night, alone in his apartment, glass of whiskey untouched in hand, Blake stared at the cold white wall in front of him. How had he forgotten this feeling? How dangerous it was to care? How much it could hurt when you let someone in? Attachment was a weakness. It always ended the same way, disappointment, loss. And for tonight, as much as it pained him, he would give her space. He wouldn't go to the dorm. Not this time. Meanwhile, Iris pulled on her short black dress, a little tighter, a little bolder than her usual style, pairing it with heeled boots and her favorite leather jacket. Claire whistled. "Damn, girl, this is not your usual look. Sexy as hell, though." Iris glanced in the mirror, ran her fingers through her hair to give it a little more volume, then smiled faintly. "Let's have some fun tonight," she said as they stepped out. The party was packed, the air electric with end-of-year energy. Final exams were nearly over, graduation just ahead. Students danced with wild abandon under pulsing techno beats, laser lights flashing through an old industrial hangar. Faces blurred in the haze of music, drinks, freedom. Iris, Claire, and their friends threw themselves into the moment, dancing, laughing, drinking. For the first time in days, Iris felt light, as if shaking off the weight of the past week. It was a kind of release, like breaking free from 7 days of captivity. The music surged, the lights spun, and then, a hand on her arm, Iris turned. Thorne, smirking, eyes sharp. "You've changed, Iris," he said, leaning close. "1 week, and look at you now. Guess that rich bastard really taught you how to be a woman, huh?" A bitter laugh. "Tell me, was it worth it? You cheating on me, with him?" Iris looked at him with cold, mocking eyes. "Cheating? That's your area of expertise, Thorne," she shot back. "Or did you forget the night I caught you, in bed?" Thorne let out a bitter, mocking laugh. "You never gave yourself to me. But now I see. Guess there really was a slut inside you after all." Who knew? A rush of pure fury surged through Iris. Without thinking, she grabbed her beer and hurled it straight at him, the cold liquid splashing all over his shirt. "You will not speak my name," she hissed. "Who I give myself to, that's my choice. And I couldn't be happier that it's not you. I'm glad it's Blake." Her voice rang out, sharp as a blade. "Now, take your shattered little ego and stay the hell away from me. Don't ever come near me again." She turned her back on him, taking a few steps, then glanced over her shoulder one last time. "Oh, and by the way, don't think for 1 second I regret it. If I hadn't caught you that night, I would have never met Blake. In a way, I should be thanking you." And with that, Iris walked away, her heart pounding, a strange sense of power rising inside her. There was only one place she wanted to be now, only one person she needed. It was past midnight when the knock startled Blake. No one knocked on his door. Not here. Not in this space that was his alone. Untouchable. Everyone who knew him understood that. As he crossed the room toward the door, Blake already knew. Only one person could have passed through the tower's private entrance at this hour. Iris. But what surprised him when he opened the door wasn't that she was there. It was how she was standing there. Blake tipped his head back slightly, caught off guard. "Iris, you—" She didn't speak. Not a word. She walked past him, slow and deliberate, heels clicking softly on the polished floors, moving straight to the center of the room. There she stopped and turned to face him. Blake approached, unhurried. His gaze swept over her, top to bottom, as he closed the space between them. "So," he said, voice low, head tilting slightly, "was the party good? Did you enjoy yourself?" Of course he knew. Of course he always knew, Iris thought. Wherever she went, he followed, in some way. There might have been cameras. There was the bracelet. Her eyes flicked to it now. She lifted her hand. "Open palm. Give me the key." Blake didn't move. For once, the usual unwavering control in his eyes flickered. "Give me the key," she repeated, her voice stronger now. "You told me I could take it off whenever I wanted." Still, Blake said nothing. "You were the one who told me no man should ever have the power to hurt me." Her voice trembled, fierce. "So give me that damn key." A long beat passed. thick in the air between them. Then, without a change in his expression, Blake reached into his pocket, slowly, and placed the small key in the center of her palm. His eyes never leaving hers, Iris slid the key into the clasp. Click. The cuff opened, falling loose. Blake exhaled, a tightness in his chest he couldn't quite name pressing harder with every breath. She placed the bracelet on the table. For a long moment, she stared at him. Neither moved. Then, without hesitation, Iris stepped forward, purposeful, heat burning in her gaze. She closed the distance and crushed her mouth to his, hard, demanding. Blake's hands instinctively caught her waist, pulling her in. Still, there was surprise in his kiss. Surprise and hunger. "Iris," he breathed, voice rough. But she grabbed his hand, leading him toward the bedroom, her steps sure, determined, her eyes lit with pure fire. In the room, she pushed him gently down onto the bed and straddled him. Fingers moved with deliberate slowness, undoing the buttons of his shirt, palms sliding over his bare chest. Blake was still watching her, breath ragged, both stunned and aroused by the power in her gaze, in her hands. This version of Iris was unlike anything he'd seen before. She leaned down, her lips brushing the tattoo above his heart. A kiss, slow, unhurried, sensual, that made him shudder. This time, she whispered against his skin, her voice thick with promise, "I'm in control." Her fingers reached for the silk scarf on the bedside table. She slid it gently over his eyes, tying it with a slow, practiced grace. Leaning close, her breath warm at his ear, "You're mine tonight, and I want to hear you say it." A soft kiss traced the corner of his mouth. Blake's hands found her hips, grip tightening. She caught them, pinned them down to the mattress. "Say it," she breathed, lips brushing his jaw. "Say you're mine." A growl, low in his throat. "I'm yours," Blake murmured, voice thick with desire. "With my body, my soul, all of me, Iris. I'm yours." As Iris moved lower, her mouth tracing a slow, deliberate path across his stomach, Blake felt something shift inside him, a new edge of pleasure he couldn't command. For the first time, he was surrendering, not leading, and when at last she sank down onto him, taking him inside her, slow, claiming, a guttural sound escaped his lips. His hands rose instinctively to the blindfold, needing to tear it away to see her. But Iris caught his wrists, holding them firmly as she whispered against his ear, "No, Blake, not tonight. Tonight, you won't see. You'll only feel me." And as Iris moved over him in that slow, deliberate rhythm, Blake could only gasp, his body arching, his control slipping away completely. With every roll of her hips, every breathless moan, he surrendered, helpless beneath her, utterly hers. Morning light seeped softly through the heavy drapes of Blake's bedroom. The room was dim, wrapped in quiet shadows. When Blake stirred awake, his hand instinctively reached out. But the space beside him was empty. Iris was gone. A sharp ache pierced his chest. The night they had shared, the experience of surrendering control to her, of letting her guide every breath, every touch. He hadn't expected it to unravel something inside him. The pleasure had been blinding, but beneath it, something deeper, a tenderness he rarely allowed to surface. The thought of losing her now, it was fear, it was devastation. She had seen him at his most exposed, and left. But then a faint aroma drifted into the room. Coffee. And distant sounds, soft movements from the kitchen. Blake's brows knit together. Throwing off the blanket, he rose from the bed. His body had never felt so alive after a night, yet his heart had never felt so raw. Barefoot, he moved toward the sound, each step quiet but certain. Iris moved gracefully, almost dancing on bare feet across the kitchen floor. Wearing nothing but Blake's crisp white shirt, barely skimming her hips, her hair loosely swept up, soft strands falling free. The quiet hum of the coffee machine filled the air. Fresh orange juice sparkled on the table, a simple breakfast for two already laid out. A wave of relief surged through Blake. The tight coil of tension in his gut, gone, replaced now by a quiet thrum beneath his ribs. He stood there at the threshold, watching her. No woman had ever moved so easily, so naturally in this space. In his space, something inside him, unknotted. Iris turned, sensing him. She didn't smile, but her gaze held his, steady, certain. "Good morning," she said, voice calm and even. "I hope you don't mind. I took the liberty of making breakfast." Blake's jaw eased, the crease between his brows softening. For a beat, he said nothing, just watched her. Then, slowly, he crossed the room. "Mind," he murmured, voice low and rough. "This is the first time anyone has ever made breakfast for me in my own home, Iris, because you never let anyone." Iris murmured, stepping closer to Blake. She tipped her face up, brushing her nose lightly against his. Her lips hovered, barely a breath from his mouth. Blake caught her by the waist, pulling her flush against him, his kiss fierce, hungry, but Iris eased back with a small smile. "Sit," she whispered. "I'm making you the best pancakes of your life." Blake blinked, half amused, half dazed, then slowly stepped back to the table, sinking into the chair. When Iris returned with 2 plates, stacked high with pancakes crowned in berries and vanilla cream, she set his in front of him, then slipped into the seat across from him, one elbow on the table, her gaze steady on his. "You went shopping this morning," Blake said, a small grin curving his lips. Iris gave a slow nod. As Blake cut a generous bite and brought it to his mouth, neither of them looked away. "Are you going to watch me eat the entire time?" he teased, eyes glinting. But Iris didn't smile. Her voice was calm, certain. I've fallen in love with you." A breath caught in Blake's chest. "I don't know what else to call it," she went on. "I'm angry with you. I keep looking for ways to run from you. And yet, all I want is to be close to you. Every time you touch me, I burn. And all I want is to be with you. And at the same time, to pull away." She drew a breath, gaze unwavering. "I don't know if this is love or obsession, but it's strong, too strong to ignore. I know I can't walk away from you, and I barely even know you." Her voice softened, but her words pressed deeper. "I'm afraid you're falling in love. Not with who I am, but with who you want me to be." She drew in another breath. "You need to see me as I really am, and I need to know you as you really are." Blake's jaw tensed, but still he said nothing, just listened. Iris continued, "This is my life. No one gets to protect me. No one owns me. No one makes choices for me." Her voice, steady as steel now. "I want a partner. Someone who'll walk beside me. Someone who sees me as equal." She swallowed. "If that's what you want too, then I'll stay. But if not," her voice caught, eyes glimmering, "I'll walk away, now even if it tears me apart." At that moment, the room grew quieter than it had ever been. Blake could hear nothing but the pounding of his own heart. No woman had ever spoken to him like this, so openly, so fearlessly. A woman who wanted him, yet would not surrender her strength. Slowly, with measured calm, he reached beneath the table, his hand slipping under the folds of his gray robe. From within, he drew out a small black velvet box. His sharp gaze lifted to Iris. He stood. 3 deliberate steps carried him to her. Iris tilted her head up, meeting his eyes, her chest tight. This could be too much for him, she knew. Blake was a man with shadows, a man who needed control, and this would test him. But I'm ready, she thought. I can face this. Iris. His voice was deep, hoarse. And then he dropped to one knee. The moment I saw you. I knew, he said quietly. There is no logic to it. And maybe that frightens you. But it's instinct. I can't breathe without you. Iris leaned forward, fingertips brushing through his hair. Blake. Slowly, he opened the velvet box in his palm. The diamond ring shimmered inside. Iris gasped softly. Blake, you... Her voice trembled. I've known I would ask you this from the beginning, Iris, he said, gaze unwavering. And this morning. When I saw you here like this, I was certain. He drew a breath. I promise. To hold your hand, to share your life, to walk beside you. If you say yes, I will follow wherever you lead. Not because I own you, but because I choose to belong to you. His eyes locked on hers, open, raw, words he'd never said to anyone. Will you marry me? For a long moment Iris said nothing. Her throat was tight. Tears welled, but did not fall, and the man before her was not the shadowed, commanding Blake of that night. It was Blake, laid bare, vulnerable, offering himself. Slowly, Iris slid from her chair, lowering to her knees before him. She reached out, gently closed the box in his hands, then cupped his face between her palms. Yes, she whispered. I will, but only on one condition. You'll ask me again, in 6 months. First, I want to be your lover, then your partner, and only after that, your wife. And Blake, I can't just be your wife. I need to become the woman I want to be, a good sociologist, with a career I can be proud of. If I lose my own self-respect, even your love for me would start to fade, and I don't want that. Step by step, if you can accept that. Blake's lips curved in a faint smile. I will follow your pace, Iris, he said softly, exactly as you wish. Iris slipped her arms around him, resting her head on his shoulder. Blake drew her close, pressing her tightly to his chest, his face buried in her neck. For both of them, a new chapter was beginning, a journey where Iris would discover her strength, and Blake would be tested by the depth of his own longing. From passion to love, their story had only just begun. Thank you for following this story all the way to the end. Now let me know, do you think this love can last? If you were in Iris's place, would you stay, or would you walk away? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if this story moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe. It means the world to me. Thank you.